Hello, let's talk about your hand-lettered quote project. So this is for Unit 3, which is focused on typography, and it's your only project that is going to be just drawn by hand. Now you still can use your resources. You can still use the computer for inspiration and to help you when you go about drawing this, but this one is done by hand. So let's go ahead and look at the requirements. First thing, your quote needs to be 3 to 15 words. So at least 3. If you only have 3, then there's probably not much to that quote, and so I'm going to push you to do more. But at most 15, because if it starts to get to more than 15, then it tends to be too much for the time that we have allotted for this. The happy medium is going to be somewhere in the middle, okay? You need to have at least 2 accents. And there are some videos linked in here to give you examples of those accents, but dividers, banners, if you look at this, there's got little banners and little stars, these little lines coming out, this banner right here, frames, flourishes, which oftentimes looks like little greenery, arrows, doodles, and little images that you've drawn to add to this. But you need to have at least 2 of those incorporated in, which those can work to your favor. They can actually help fill in space to make the entire image look a little more balanced, or they can help just add some character to your final quote. Number 3, you must include 2+ fonts. Now, I don't suggest doing many more than 2, honestly. 2 to 3 is pretty normal, but you need to have at least 2. I don't want you just to do the entire thing in one font, because the whole purpose of this project is typography, and I want to make sure that you understand how to pair typography. So you'll see a video on that in here as well, but make sure you're pairing opposites. For example, bold and thin, script and serif, 2 things that are going to stand out against each other so they don't look too similar. Number 4, it must fill the page. Now you can use whatever paper you have at home. Copy paper works fine. If you have some nicer drawing paper or a bigger sketchbook, then that's awesome. If not, you can even just use the sketchbook that's been provided and the Sharpie that's been provided if you've come to grab your supplies from the lead office. If you haven't gotten to pick those up yet, you are still welcome to come and grab those. But whatever the page you use, you need to make sure that you're filling up that space. It's not just a tiny little thing, it should be filled completely. And then number 5, it must be neatly organized using guidelines and finished in ink. Okay, so by the time you're totally done with it, it should be nicely spaced, centered on the page, however you plan to organize that. And then you should have gone over it with either your Sharpie that's provided, or if you have a thinner black pen or anything of that nature will work, but it needs to look finished. Okay. Those are the main requirements. Now, here are the steps on how you'll get started. So, and you can divide up these steps however you want this week. Just make sure that you have it all done by the end of the week. First thing, you need to choose a quote. So you know that it needs to be between 3 and 15 words. Otherwise, it can be a favorite quote, mantra, a movie reference, a song lyric, something you or someone you care about just says a lot. Think outside the box. Do something that's personal to you, something that's relevant to you. Otherwise it just needs to be between 3 and 15. I have a mantra that I use a lot, and so I'll be doing mine where it's sing often, laugh always, and embrace change. And that's something I have written up in my house, something that means a lot to me and different things that I've experienced in my life. It's something I've had to tell myself because change used to be really hard, and I've learned that change can actually be really good. And so that's probably what I'll do. But you can do something funny. You can do whatever you want for this. Okay. Okay, this is when it starts to get a little bit trickier. I need you to block out your page. This is something that all great typographers and graphic designers do when they're trying to organize where things go. So you see these beautiful hand lettered quotes that you're like, wow, it's just like perfectly on there. And you think, how do they do it? Well, they do it with a lot of planning. As you can see from the image here, there's some guidelines that they've created, and these would all be in pencil for you, where they've made a line down the middle of the page to help find the center. So you're always putting things on the center for this. And then, as you see here, you decide what words are most important. You make space for those. So maybe those are the words that are going to go on these banners or go up here. Then you also need to make space for the other parts. And essentially, you're just you're planning it out. You're creating these blocks or these different shapes. And once you have the shape of where you want the different words to go, then you're counting how many letters are in each of those words and you're just dividing it up, okay? So that you don't accidentally get like a really big letter at the beginning and then a small letter squished at the end. There is a video in here that kind of shows how to walk through this. So I know this is one of the trickier concepts. You can also always ask me if you want some more help. But here they are completely blocked out for this one. Here's another example of just somebody using guidelines, lines and shapes to help guide. And so you can see they've created like a middle line to help them center it, and then they've created these circles and different shapes to be able to write their wording on there. And then this is a video where it actually shows a lot of these steps, but at the very beginning, she walks through just like writing out her quote and then blocking it out where it'll go. And so this is a really important one to make sure that you go back and you watch. All right, once you have it blocked out of where everything is going to go, then you have to decide what is that going to look like when it's in there? What fonts are you going to use? So you want to use at least 2 fonts, usually 2 or 3 at the most. You want to pair opposites. And so as you can see here, there's examples of tall and skinny with pretty thick script. Mix bold all caps with sassy lowercase. Something frilly with something tough. But opposites attract with this. So choose a couple different fonts and to make sure that they can pair well together. Also make sure whatever your fonts are that they're going to go with whatever the essence of your quote is. So if your quote is really funny, then you're probably not just going to do like a traditional serif the whole time. But if your quote is more serious, then you're probably not going to use like curly Q scripts the entire time. So make sure that it's appropriate. And then it says on whichever your fonts, usually make one of them more bold, more unique, and then you make the secondary font a little simpler. Here is a video. She does a really good job of giving examples of different font pairings and when they're appropriate. And so watch this one. And then here is a website that we refer to a lot, defont.com. It's awesome. So if you're just trying to decide what kinds of fonts you want to use, go here. They have this table at the top that you can just, it's basically a menu of all these different kinds of fonts, and you can go through there and you can click on it. You can actually click on the font. Some of the fonts you can download for free, which is really cool, but you can click on the font and you can actually like type in words that you want it to say, and then you can use that as reference when you're drawing it. So it doesn't have to be completely from scratch. You can look at these fonts for inspiration whenever you're drawing. Here is another video. This isn't as much about fonts, but more about enhancing the letters. And so as you can see here, a lot of these letters are like, looks like they're really bold. They're jumping off the page. They've got little different accents all over them. And so this gives a ton of different examples of what you can do to enhance just your normal lettering that you might already have on there. This one's great to watch. 60 fun and fast font examples. So basically they just draw it over and over again. This video was created for someone who does bullet journaling, if you're familiar, but as you can see from this graphic right here, tons of different really beautiful ways to embellish your type. And then doodle words. So if you want to incorporate imagery into what your words are, this just gives a ton of different inspiration and examples. All right. Once you have that figured out, so at this point you will have your paper blocked out, and then you will have the words actually, you'll know where the words are and you'll know what fonts you want to use for them. Then you need to actually start sketching the letters using those chosen fonts. So you might have to adjust at this point. Hopefully everything's in the right spot, but use your fonts to actually start drawing these in. Use your references from defont.com, or if you've created your own font, just take your time with it, make sure it's really neat. But everything is done just in pencil still. As you can see on the left-hand part of this example, that's kind of what it'll look like as you're going through. Okay, really sketchy, just kind of figuring out where things go. Really study the fonts you choose. If you're struggling with this part, trying to make it really neat and clean, then go back and practice your fonts. That can help a lot, or you might have to adjust the font that you're using. Finally, we come back to those accents. So once you have the wording on there, then you're ready to start adding some different accents. This is really helpful to balance your overall image. If you feel like one part of it is a little simpler and another part is a little more detailed, then you can add some details to the simpler part as well, using dividers, banners, frames, flourishes, arrows, doodles. And here is a video about just tons of different accents and how to draw them. Here's some more examples of accents that you would use for like a title, but these could work for tons of different things. When you are totally done with your accents, with blocking everything out, and you have your font in there really neatly, then it's still in pencil, so now we need to finish it. So you are going to take your black Sharpie that's provided, or if you have one at home. If you have a small black pen, even if it's just like a Bic pen or anything like that, a free black pen, then you can use that. And I want you to very neatly go over your details, make sure it's really clean to draw this. If you really need to, if it doesn't appear neat enough, or if you mess up, as long as it's on like a thinner paper, you could take another piece of paper, like a clean piece of paper, on top of the one that you sketched on, put it up against the window when it's bright outside. So you can use that as like a light board, and then you can trace that way onto your clean paper as well. Okay. Either way, you just want to end up with just the clean black pen or Sharpie, and you want to erase any pencil marks that are left behind. If you want to go a step further and add shading or color, and you think that that's going to elevate your design, you are more than welcome to. My focus is on the typography and the feeling that you're getting from this, but sometimes color, especially if you're just doing specific words or something, can add a lot as well. And so I'm going to completely leave that up to you as the artist to make that decision. When you are totally done, you will need to fill out the self-reflection rubric. A few people missed this last time. First thing, you need to take a very clear image. It has to be very clear for me to be able to grade it properly and to give you full credit on craftsmanship. Then upload that image. You're going to upload it to Unit 3, your hand-lettered quote project. And then the self-reflection rubric is in there, and you're going to fill that out. 2 to 3 sentences for each part of it, explaining how well you think you did on each part. And so the parts are craftsmanship, which is how clean it is, how neat it is it centered, are all the eraser marks gone, is your pen very neat? Then creativity, so that decides on did you use interesting details and accents, and did you use an interesting quote? Then comes, let's see, craftsmanship, creativity. Skill application is simply whether or not you met those requirements that were at the beginning of this. 3 to 10 words, you mix 2 or more fonts, you have multiple accents, it's cleaned up at the end, it's organized. And then growth. So just talk through, have you done this before? Did you grow in this? Did you push yourself to do something and to do a really good job of this? Explain each of those things. Give yourself a score. I will score how your self-reflection is, which is at the bottom, and that's 20 points for doing this part. And then I will give you feedback and give you a score overall at the end. All right, before we finish up, I want to leave you with a bunch of different examples for inspiration. So most of these are professionals, a lot of graphic designers. In fact, I even have a friend who works downtown who specializes in typography. And so a lot of graphic designers do things of this nature, but I wanted to give you some incredible examples so you can see what the possibilities are. So here's one, tons of beautiful imagery, lots of different fonts, way more than we would usually take on, but obviously this is a professional. I love this quote, and I love how simple, but it has the script mixed with the more simple sans serif capital lettering. Here's another one, a couple different fonts mixed together. This one has a beautiful banner, and then I love how they kind of faded it down and up. This is a really example of filling that page with accents and helping to like really step it up. If you can imagine if it didn't have all these accents on there, it's cool, but it would not make near the impact that it does with all these accents coming off. Here's another beautiful one. The fonts are very appropriate for what the quote is. Another one with very beautiful fonts, different, very detailed. Another very detailed ones, lots of accents. One where you're creating that imagery and you're literally working your quote into the imagery. So that's always an option for you. I just love this one. Working it in with a big image as well. Here's an example of color. And so having that brave and then mimicking that orange, burnt orange color in the handle is really interesting and makes the entire piece come together. Another great example of filling the page, how you can actually work with extra fonts to make it all work if you're thoughtful about it and if you're balanced with it. This one's got so many details. Just incredible. Another one, these are professionals, but I've also seen what a lot of you guys have done. So I think if you guys can take the time to really sit down with this and add lots of details, make it really clean, you can do some incredible stuff as well. Another great one, more simple, but still filling the page, meeting all those requirements. Okay, so take your time with this. You have the entire week to work on this. Email me if you need any help, if you have any questions. I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with and to read your quotes even. So have a great day.